Jeremy is asking, do you have any family that have become Muslim? Any advice in regards to siblings and older family members we might hope to call to Islam?
Bismillah. Yes, I have family who embraced Islam, and I know people who've had family members as well who've embraced Islam, alhamdulillah. Some of them practice and some of them don't, I'll be honest. Some people, they kind of see the sense in it, but again, it's the price that you pay, isn't it? So some people are prepared to pay the price for living the lifestyle and giving up whatever they need to give up and adopting what they need to adopt. And others are just like, that's a step too far for me. So I have family who accepted Islam but don't practice. May Allah guide them. And I would say, with regards to our own families, when we became Muslim, the trend was, and maybe it's still the trend, I don't know, but the trend was, we have found this amazing thing. It's the truth, and we want everyone to know the truth. So we're very upfront, very open, sometimes quite combative. We want to debate with everyone because we want to show them, no, what you're on it's not true. X, Y, Z about the church, about the Bible, about the this, about the that, and we end up having a lot of arguments with family. Certainly that was back in the day. That's what it was like. I don't know what it's like now, but I think what I have seen in my own family and with other people's families is that at the end of the day, right at the base of everything is fear. Your family are afraid that you will change and that you won't love them anymore, and that you won't be the person that you were in the family. Maybe they're afraid of you being taken advantage of. Maybe they're afraid of you losing your culture, right? Because remember that all our families, like, we all came from a culture. We all came from families that had values and principles and a history. And it's like the thing about names, right? For those of us who became Muslim, I remember when I became Muslim, it was very normal to change your name and to tell your family, this is my new name, and I expect you to call me by my new name. Fair enough. If anyone's done that, or if you're planning to do that, no problem. But it took some years and some listening and some lots of discussions to come to the realization that for our families, that's huge. Because if you think about your parents, your mother carrying you in her womb and all the hopes and dreams that she had for you, and they chose that name for a reason, both your parents or your family or whoever it was, they chose that name for a reason. They gave you that name and they've called you that name for your whole life. And then one day you come home and you say, that's not my name anymore. This is my name. Something foreign, something they don't know about, something they maybe do know about and they do not like. It's a big ask, So sometimes it's about having sabr and, patience, and about having wisdom with it. Because as I said, at the root of all of this is a fear. And the fears could be many, right? From My Sister's Lips is a really good book to give to anyone in your family that is slightly open to understanding what you're going through, right? Not necessarily open for themselves, but understanding what you're going through. From My Sister's Lips is a good book because it's written for non-Muslim. It's written answering non-Muslims' questions, basically. So you may want to check that out. But at the end of the day, your family just want to make sure that you're okay. And what often I've seen gets them to calm down and get off the offensive or the defensive, whatever the situation is when they see you doing well, in spite of the stuff they don't like, right? In spite of the fact that you're not having bacon anymore, in spite of the fact that you're dressing differently, in spite of the fact that you're always praying. But you know what? She's become calmer. He's so much nicer to me as a son. I know I can always count on him. Like, she's much more reliable. He's taking his life seriously now. I see how committed he is to bettering himself or to being, an active member of the community. We see how he honors us as his parents. We see how she's so kind to Nana when she comes. You know what I mean? The actual, the manners and the manners of the Muslim, right? And the values and the principles of the Muslim, they're universal. They're universal. And anyone who is not blinded by prejudice can see. They will see it. But the whole goal is for you to embody it first. And don't try and ram it down their throats, especially with theology and having those theological arguments, because most people nowadays don't even care. This has been my experience. Some of us may have very religious family members, and you know what that looks like. But for most people in society nowadays, they really couldn't care less. They just don't want you to be on them to do anything related to what you're doing. So I definitely would say conserve your energy for learning. And those two things, being sincere and striving and being the best version of yourself and giving them their rights. And then, when the conversation opens up, just be so chill about it, because remember, at the end of the day, the guidance is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not from you. You can say one thing. They don't even acknowledge it that day. But when they take Shahada 2-3 years later, they're like, you know what? That day you just said that one thing and it's like a seed was planted that day and you just left it with me. There was nothing to argue with because we weren't having an argument. You just left it with me. And now I realize, what you were saying was the truth. Or we argued, and then later on I see it. You know what? You had a point. My point is, it's your journey. You're only responsible for yourself, especially initially. Don't think that you're going to take on the burden of converting your whole family. Of course, anyone asks you questions, just answer the questions in the most relaxed way possible and point them towards sources. If there's any curiosity there, point them towards sources and just encourage an open dialogue. Try not to be defensive. Try not to take offense at things, especially because most of them are coming from a place of ignorance. They don't really have solid knowledge about Islam. There's just stuff that they've heard, stuff that they've seen. And the stuff that they've heard and seen, let's be honest, is really very, very, very negative. They may not have heard anything positive about Muslims ever. I'm sure many of us have, families like that where Muslim, what? And for example, those of us whose family come from African families, where there's a feud between Christians and Muslims back home. What, you're going to be like those Muslims? What? There's layers to it, right? So don't take on the burden of proof with your family. Focus on your own growth first and try to just have that sense of, at the end of the day, guidance is in the hands of Allah. It's just upon me to convey the message in the best way. And sometimes to start with, the best way is just they see that you are a better person and they understand that it's from Islam. It's because of Islam that she's like this, that he's like that. And even if they're begrudging, even if they won't admit it at the time, they're glad for you because we can see that you're doing better now. And this is the way that, mashallah, some people, especially when they become Muslim, like in jail, and they come out of prison and they have a new focus and a new discipline and a new routine. The family may not have wanted you to become Muslim, but they're like, you know what? I prefer you when you're Muslim, you know what I mean? But then you were on road, this is good. I can work with this. So, we all have different situations because some of us, of course, the price that we paid for Islam is that we've disappointed our families in a way, right? So that's obviously more difficult. So for example, in my family, for example, performance was a really big thing. I remember when I became Muslim, my dad wanted me to go on a tour with him. And I was like, I can't do that anymore. So of course, for him, it was like, oh, great. If you were working somewhere where you eventually decided this is not halal for me, and it was a really well-paying job or a very prestigious job, and you leave that for the sake of Islam, of course, people are gonna be like, oh, here we go, great. So it's not always the same for everyone. There's not really a one-size-fits-all answer, but those who have eyes to see will see. And those who Allah has put a barrier on them and has covered their eyes, don't waste your energy trying to convince them. Just do you for the sake of Allah sincerely, and inshallah, Allah will take care of the rest. Bismillah.
Yeah, I think sometimes when we convert, we can be a bit overzealous in trying to convince others of the truth. And, we've obviously embraced this beautiful religion. We want everybody to know about it. But we don't really have a lot of knowledge ourselves, actually, to do that. And we don't know the methodology of calling people, inviting others to Islam as well, which is also important. And I always tell people, the best, thing for your family is that they see a change in you, that they see
Yeah.
you become a better person, and then
Mm.
they'll know, that this is the truth, that you don't need to say anything to them.